What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines are still open, 800-313-9443. And I'm being informed by our control room that the telephone replay of my show is actually handled by an outside company, and we're going to forward along to them this complaint and see if they at least know what's going on or are able to fix it. All right, so we're talking about public image. And the FBI is notorious for always worrying about their public image. When J. Edgar Hoover was in charge of the FBI, he always said that rule number 1 of the FBI was never embarrass the agency, or never embarrass the Bureau, rather. And he went to very great lengths to mold a public image of the FBI. In one very famous case, there was a movie made called The FBI Story, and it starred Jimmy Stewart. And what a lot of people do not know is that J. Edgar Hoover was actually on the soundstage every day telling the director how to direct the movie to craft the best possible image for the FBI agent being portrayed by Jimmy Stewart. At one point in the movie, Hoover appears seen from the backside. This was before his face became well known to the American public. The FBI has always had agents inside all of entertainment who would be looking at scripts for references to the FBI, and any that portrayed the FBI in less than a wonderful light, the FBI would literally call on up and threaten these producers. You take this scene out, or you rewrite it, or we'll find some way to mess with you. And that happened time and time again. In fact, if you go to the top of my website, there's an entry for COINTELPRO, which was the FBI's program in the 1960s to stifle free speech and other things. And on that page, there's actually a heading of the FBI in Hollywood, in which a lot of the examples of how the FBI was trying to influence how they were portrayed in film and TV is laid out. So FBI Director James Comey is now aware that the FBI is not seen as a wonderful, positive agency, especially after the way they gave Hillary Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card last year. And so James Comey has hit on a solution to improve the FBI's public image, and no, it is not having the FBI actually do their job. He's basically authorized a new production of a new TV series based on the FBI to boost their image. And he's actually out there saying that the poor perception of the FBI is not the fault of the FBI, it's the fault of the American people, because they don't trust, they don't believe. They're looking for the bad things. So it's all your fault that the government looks terrible, according to James Comey. It's a little bit out there. All right. Let me close down this thing here. I think PC is getting a little bit out of control. And I could not believe it when I saw this. Over at the Huffington Post, there's a blogger who put up a post, which Huffington Post was apparently okay letting it go, where this blogger, this Huffington Post blogger, put forward the suggestion that white men should be denied the right to vote for 20 years to correct all the wrongs they afflicted on the world. This actually came out of the Huffington Post. White men should not be allowed to vote. Now, can you imagine the fury if somebody came on out and said blacks should not be allowed to vote, or women should not be allowed to vote? I mean, look at the fury we got just saying illegal immigrants shouldn't be allowed to vote. And Huffington Post comes on out with white men should not be allowed to vote. Yeah, okay, sure. Now, I want to put something out there. First of all, you never end racism by being racist in reverse. You just fan the flames of discord. Second, I refuse to accept collective guilt for other people's actions, especially actions that took place before I was born. I refuse to feel guilty for what you imagine the white people have done to the world, like inventing the automobile and the light bulb and radio and TV, so forth and so on. Hang on a second. All right. So, but they're actually out there saying white men should not be allowed to vote for 20 years. Punishment for things they imagine that we have done. Pardon me. Okay. Pardon me. And this is, like I said, imagine the fury if somebody said we should deny the vote to women or deny the vote to blacks. And for them to even be proposing this. They've gone off their rocker over there at the Huffington Post. When did they start this war on white people? When did it become socially acceptable to discriminate against white people and literally say white men should not be allowed to vote in the elections? It's absurd in the extreme. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just rejoining our network. And let's get on back here to United Airlines. Talk about an epic business fail. We're finding out now that apparently there was a United flight from Aspen, and it was completely filled. And the United staffers came on in and tried to kick passengers out of first class, make them go back and sit in economy, because the CEO of United Airlines, Munoz, and his family just wanted to get a ride in first class back home. And I'm sure he sees it as a perk of being the CEO for United Airlines. But it didn't come across very well for those people who'd actually paid for those first class tickets. Now, this has triggered a huge public outcry, not just against United, but pointing to United's treatment of these passengers, their destruction of property, the band's guitars, my 5-string banjo, as really displaying the callous attitude of corporate leadership toward their own customers. Once they get your money, that's it. You're just cargo. We'll put you wherever we want to put you, and that's it. And already United is trying to find a way to recover its brand, because its brand has taken a major, major hit. Its brand approval. They're already doing surveys to assess the damage. And they're saying it could actually take United Airlines years to regain a positive image of their brand. And it should. And you, the American people, should not tolerate abusive treatment by anyone in any store, any commercial venture, any airline, any bus service, anything. You shouldn't tolerate it. All of those places are in existence to make their money off of you. They should show you a little respect. I miss the world where the prevailing wisdom in business was the customer is always right. Because we don't live in that world anymore. And it's another sign of this encroaching fascist attitude. And we see it in the treatment by United Airlines against their passengers. We see it in the lack of selection and quality in our retail establishments, the continuing planned obsolescence, forced obsolescence. Corporate leadership and government see us, the American people, as nothing more than walking wallets, and in the government's case, breeders of soldiers. That's it. They have no respect for us as human beings. Their attitude is not, gee, we're sorry, we're not carrying the product that you want to buy. Their attitude is, this is what we're selling you, and you should be grateful we're here to sell it to you, and stop complaining. I remember one time when I was still a customer of Best Buy, and I've told everybody about all the problems I've had with Best Buy. And the attitude was on full display there. We got your money. We don't owe you anything. terrible. Now, a lot of people are making fun of United Airlines. There's all kinds of graphics and memes and Twitter jokes and all the rest of the stuff out there. And the funniest one of all, and we put it on the front of whatreallyhappened.com, there is a video made by a jiu-jitsu instructor that shows you how to fight back if you're being dragged down an airline aisle by the police on United Airlines. And apparently it's actually very easy, if you're in that position, flat on your back, and they got you by the arms, to simply flip your legs up and hit something really, really tender on those United Airlines personnel. And frankly, if I were in that position, I would be strongly tempted to do that, even at my age. It's time for the American people to stand up and start complaining about what's going on. Stop being sheep. Oh, wait a minute. It's Easter. Stop being rabbits. Be human beings again. Be Americans again. I mean, again, going back to when I was young, if somebody had tried to kick somebody off of an airline seat they had paid for, there would have been a fist fight in the aisles. And the courts would have ruled the airline aired. So, we're going to take a phone call. Sherry in Fredericksburg. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. This is so wonderful that you're saying this because I've been waiting to hear this. My question was about what Trump can do, but I understand that our corrupt corporate system created this mess, and I'm glad you mentioned this because it puts everything in context. But I have to say, if I were a political cartoonist, I would show a giant U.S. corporate or military boot that's leaving giant footprints behind and is fixing to step on a little Trump-faced ant. And my question is, what can a little Trump-faced ant do without being stepped on? You know, and what you're saying here is a kind of an answer to that because he can bring people to trial. This can go on behind the scenes with lawyers if people will stop eavesdropping on everything he does. But what you're talking about here is really such a big answer to that question. He's limited, but we're not. You know, and in listening to all this you're talking about, they overstock the less desirable stuff for retail, the lesser quality, because they can put in cheaper stock that they can afford to sell. Everything's just going downhill. This is why we need to have trade with other countries, get some of that good English, you know, biscuits and candy coming in.
Oh,
and
I miss that stuff, especially like, like the lemon curd. Yeah. You know, yeah. Having worked in Europe, I mean, that was an eye-opening experience for me. And we're talking about back in the 1980s. And I got to Europe, and I got to sample European beers compared to American beers. Can't even begin to compare them. European chocolate compared to this brown paraffin stuff they sell us here. We really are being sold absolute crud products compared to many other parts of the world. We've reached a stage right now where as good as the electronics are that we're getting from places like China and Taiwan, they're keeping the best stuff for themselves, and some of it's just amazing. I remember long before we had cell phones in this country that had keyboards and stuff on them, they were already down in Australia. I saw them when I worked down there. And I was looking at that and saying, why don't we have that in the United States? And I think it was like another year and a half before we could get them.
Yeah. I have an integrative medicine doctor. And I came down with a little candida throwing out the coffee grinds on my garden, and they were full of mold and everything. And she says, you've got to go to European wine, you've got to go to European cheeses, you've got to go to European, you know, this, that, and the other. She says, you don't have to quit eating it. You're just going to have to go to a finer quality. I said, we have great wine here in South Central Texas. We're known for our wine. She says, it doesn't compare. The French come here and they look at our wine and they test it and they say, oh my God. And here we think it's the greatest there is, you know, and that kind of offended me almost, but it's like the quality is so much better. Then you have Russia's, of course, Russia's non-GMO pristine fields growing all this food that we need here. So, yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up. This is excellent stuff focus on.
Yeah,
But this is something we can do. We can go to the best and encourage trade from other countries because we're losing it here.
Yeah, we are. I mean, American products are seen as poor quality, very expensive, prone to breakage. Nobody wants our GMO.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this nation's in trouble. I remember when I was working in Europe, and when I was working in Milan, I came across this Italian wine. It was produced in the Lombardia region. Just absolutely amazing. And as soon as I got back home to Los Angeles, I went to the bottle shop, the biggest bottle shop in town that had all these imported wines, and I said, I want this, and they said, we can't get it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
That's it. I went the other day to HEB, and he showed me. He says, I don't know if this is going to be much better than what you can get locally. And I thought, oh no, yeah. And it wasn't that much expensive. I think I'd have felt better if it had been. Not that that would have helped me on my budget and stuff, but it's sad. It's sad. Thank you, Mike, for pointing this out.
Yeah, and it's time for Americans to become more demanding. We want value for money. We don't want planned obsolescence. We certainly don't want the government ordering us to buy things we don't want. All of these are signs of a fascist dictatorship. Yeah. I mean, now they're ordering little boys to get the cervical cancer vaccine. Little boys don't get cervical cancer.
Yeah. I know, it's absurd. Yeah, it's really absurd. It's just that they can't afford the best. But if we had the best to choose from, maybe we could afford it. We could find a way to afford the best because the other's not worth having, you know. So. Well,
see, the advantage for the stores of having the lowest possible cost items is they can have a thicker profit margin.
Right.
And that's it. It's maximizing profit, buy low, sell high. And their thinking is if there is nothing but the cheap junk in the store, then we don't have a choice to get a better quality product. And, I remember I used to go in and had this argument with Best Buy, saying, I will buy the stuff that will last. I'm willing to pay the extra money to get something because what I was getting from Best Buy was stuff that was falling apart here. I'd get a new keyboard for my computer, and 2 months later the letters would be dying, and, oh, you're just outside the warranty, and you need to buy a new keyboard. There's no spare parts. And I kept telling them, I will spend whatever money it takes to get a durable, long-lasting keyboard. No, we don't have that. And, I finally, again, I'm ordering online, and I discovered I'm using these gamer keyboards from Razer. Now, I'm not a computer gamer. The only game I play is Flight Simulator. I love flight simulators. But these keyboards are mechanical. They hold up, and I'm a very heavy typist because I learned to type on a manual typewriter. But they're wonderful. Anyway, Sherry, anything else?
No, really, you're just hitting on 100% on how it is, and I look forward to that. I think they're going to all break away because they want to be free to trade with us. They don't want to be jacked around either. They look at what we have to give them, like you pointed out before, and they're going to say, no, I think we'll pull out of we'll pull out and do our own thing.
Well, these so-called trade agreements, free trade agreements, it's not free. If you've got free trade, you don't need an agreement. What these Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, Trans-Pacific Partnership were all about was literally compelling other countries to buy America's cheaply made products and force them on their own people. It's an extension of that fascist economic empire.
Well, if any of them are listening, I'm waiting for their stuff. And I'm just going to hold out until I can get the real quality as much as I can. So
yeah.
I'm one that's voting for them.
I agree with you on that one. It's time for everybody to get angry. It's time to stop putting up with this nonsense. It's time to be demanding and say, look, if you want my money, you make me happy. I'm not here to make you happy. Anyway, listen, Sherry, we're going to let you go. Take a break for commercials.
Thanks.
Back with another phone call after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And CNN is reporting that satellite photos show North Korean nuclear site primed and ready. Folks, it's an underground nuclear test. What can they see on a satellite that tells them whether or not there's a nuclear bomb about to be tested there? And it's illustrated with the usual blurry photo with labels on there saying, well, we think this is this and we think this is that. And, by golly, these are all very, very terrible indications here. It's amazing here. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Tom in Minnesota, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you, Michael. Aloha. Yeah, you're talking about shoddy American workmanship. That started back when, like our military equipment, when I was in the Army in the 70s. I always thought the M16 was made by Mattel. I kept looking for that stamp on there, but couldn't find it.
Well,
now it's like
Mattel made the buttstock and the foregrip.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But, you compare that now, they advertise all these weapons as lightweight and all this stuff. It's made out of shoddy material that's going to deteriorate and not have a...
I'm going to have to disagree with you. I'm going to have to disagree with you on two fronts. First of all, the M16 AR-15 is a well-designed system. Again, I've been trying to find the time to finish mine. But I remember what George Bernard Shaw said, there's nothing in man's industry but his greed and his sloth. His heart is in his weapons. Yeah, there's a lot of overpricing and clunkiness in weapons like the F-35, but generally the firearms tend to be very well built compared to like civilian equipment. I remember when I was in, like high school age, I was a big customer of the Edmund Scientific Company because back then a large part of their business was involved with selling war surplus materials. And I remember I ordered this tank periscope with a built-in 6-power telescope, and I used it to manufacture a finder scope for this telescope, this astronomical telescope I'd built in junior high. And I remember I had never seen optics that great, certainly not on anything available in the store. It was this amazing Erfel eyepiece, and the objective, and it was crystal clear. And I was just very impressed with how it was all put together. Of course, I can imagine it cost a bloody fortune, when it was originally being bought. But generally, military equipment does tend to be built a little bit better, or at least back during that era. Now, yes, in today's day and age, it does seem to be thinned out and shoddy. We know that one of the Navy's Aegis cruisers was hit with one of its own drones by accident, and it punched right through that tower on the deck behind the Aegis radar and destroyed $30 million worth of computers. And I guess finally somebody realized just how fragile and overdependent on active defensive systems U.S. Navy ships are, because especially after that incident in the Black Sea with the USS Donald Cook, all of a sudden we're hearing talk about bringing back the heavily armored battleships, the big ones that can withstand a pounding, like the Aiea class. And those are very amazing. And again, I'm not a fan of war, but some of the stuff that's been created for it is actually pretty cool here. I go down here to the Missouri all the time and take the tour. In fact, one time, Claire and I got one of the guided extra special tours. We were involved in this charity thing. And so we got to take a tour that the regular tourists don't get to see, and it was really cool. I got to, pull the triggers that would fire the main guns, which, of course, didn't do anything, but it made a cool-looking photo. But generally the consumer... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, was that, when it got... You're in a dirty environment for any length of time, it would jam. It just wasn't made to function.
That is an issue. The tolerances were too close, and that's one of the reasons why the AK-47 is so popular, is because you can get it in the dirt, you can get it in the mud, the thing will even fire underwater. That is an advantage the AK has. But I'm, now that I'm actually playing with one, I'm impressed with that AR system, the fact that you can change the caliber of the rifle just by changing the bolt, spring, and the barrel itself. And if I ever get around to finishing the one I have, of course, it's configured as a target rifle with the extra long barrel and the scope and everything like that, because I love punching holes in paper. I always have. All right, Tom, do you have more? Do you want to stay over the commercial break?
I'll stay over.
All right, we'll be right back. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Tom in Minnesota. Tom, you had something else you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had covered that but Trump had changed Obama policy of making the White House visitor log public publicly available, and now it's only, you can access it, but you got to know a specific person to go through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, Trump's already getting a lot of criticism for that, the White House visitor logs are being withheld. Those are supposed to be public records as to who's getting in and not getting in. So, again, it's another disappointment. But again, you know, again, let's be honest, that may not be Trump himself. That may be the White House Chief of Staff.
Okay. And then that big bomb they dropped in Afghanistan there, you know, people think about, you know, the nuclear, there's all this radiation. They don't realize how dirty bombs are in general and the pollution they leave behind. And the size of that one, the devastation to just the people who must have lived in that region, the wildlife, environment, especially with the secondary explosion, sounds like it was massive amounts of powdered aluminum that flashed all the flames and sucked all the oxygen.
It could very well have been, and it is a huge bomb. And somebody actually did a graphic of a city dropping that bomb at City Hall and showing just how far the devastation went. And it is a huge, huge bomb. They're being less than accurate saying it's the most powerful non-nuclear bomb. It is the most powerful non-nuclear bomb in the American arsenal. Russia has one that's 4 times more powerful and, amazingly enough, considerably lighter, which makes delivery of it easier. And then, of course, there are the fuel air bombs, and there isn't theoretically any upper limit on how powerful those can be built.
Yep, I was just hoping people were aware that there's, not beyond the devastation from the bomb itself, it leaves behind residues that are quite poisonous for quite some time. It's a continuing environmental hazard. It doesn't just recover because there's a lot of stuff left behind from
oh, absolutely. It's a mess. Not just the bomb itself, but combustion products that are burned up by the bomb that may themselves, in fact, be toxic. And it doesn't even have to be weapons and chemicals that were down in that tunnel complex. There's a lot of ordinary materials used in construction. If they're burned up, the combustion products from that can be very, very toxic and contaminate the ground, contaminate the water. It's a bad thing. Yep. Wars are bad things. Let's just, you know, leave it at that.
Yep, that's why the theme of your site, World War III is a bad idea.
Yes.
It's more means more today than it did probably when you originally said it.
Well, you know, I did put that up there as one of the rotating banners and in one of the intros because I've seen this, you know, this push toward a new world war for many, many years now.
Okay, well, thanks for what you're doing.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Now, I'm keeping an eye. So far, there are no indications that North Korea has detonated their test nuclear warhead. Of course, it's only coming up on 8 o'clock in the morning there, so we still have the rest of the day. North Korea's new position is the test will go forward when the government decides it's appropriate, so they may delay a few days. It's not like anybody's committed to a particular schedule. The only reason they were saying that the test was going to happen now is to line up with the birthday of the founder of the Korean nation, which is a big national holiday, and a lot of nations like to show off their military might on the big holidays. A good example would be the annual May Day parade in Russia, which is still continuing in the post-Soviet era. But we are seeing a lot of people are very concerned about how this could go out of control. Very, very, very easily. And I'm looking at this article that came out of RINF.com. What would a U.S., European, Russian war look like? And so people are already out there seriously thinking what could happen. And there are a lot more people out there who are saying, if you are not a prepper yet, now would be a really good time to start. Because if you are in an urban environment that gets hit with a nuclear weapon, and you are not yourself immediately vaporized, you can pretty much guarantee that the electric service, the water service, the sewage service are all going to stop working for a considerable period of time. And you need to be ready to deal with that. And it's the same preparations you would make for an act of nature, hurricane, earthquake, tornado, flooding. storable food. You should have enough for your family for at least 2 months. And going with that, you have to have a lot of water. That is critical. And there is this survivalist store on Oahu that we go to, and it renamed itself recently to Be Safe Hawaii. And one of the things they sell there is this 2-pail water filtering system. Now, it's not cheap, but you can pour anything with water in that top pail, and what filters into that bottom pail is drinkable, usable water. And when they say anything in that top pail, they really do mean it. I'm not going to go into descriptions. That is something that you should have as a backstop to your stored water. Obviously, some kind of electricity for the basics, for your computer, whatever, even assuming there's still an internet. Having a shortwave radio would be a very, very good idea. And in all electronic devices that are part of your survival kit, do not leave the batteries in them. Many brands of batteries will leak and destroy equipment. It's been a big pain, and I've lost a lot of equipment to batteries that I will get, including some name brand batteries, and they will leak and destroy the insides of the electronics. Now, there is, thankfully, happily, one exception, and that's Everready. And I mentioned how when I was a kid, Everready actually had a guarantee. If their batteries leaked and wrecked something, they would replace it. Now, this was in a day and age when mostly you were talking about flashlights. And flashlights were very inexpensive to replace. But Everready has actually come on out and revived that guarantee for some of their lines of batteries. And one of my shortwave radios, I dusted it off to start listening to broadcasts coming from North Korea. That's why I was down there trying to get the wire for the shortwave radio. And the batteries were all dead. And I opened it up expecting the worst, that the radio was destroyed. And the batteries, as it turned out, I put Everready in there, not a leak. Radio's in perfect condition. So from now on, I'm only buying the Everreadys. And the lithiums are really good. They'll last a very, very long time. So if you don't have leak-proof batteries, don't keep your batteries in the electronics in your survival kit. Obviously, if you're on some kind of prescription medication, you should go to your doctor and just say, I want to make sure I've got an extra surplus. And what you should do is rotate the medications because they do have expiration dates, which means that when you get a new prescription, the new prescription goes in your survival kit and one of the older bottles comes out so that you're always updating the extra prescription medicines in your survival kit. If you are helpless without your glasses, get an extra set of glasses, keep them in there. Develop a plan with your members of family. What to do if something happens while you are separated. Where are you going to meet each other? Probably ought to have a little bit of extra gasoline to put in the car. Like I said, the same things that you would do if you live in an area hit by hurricanes, which we are here in Hawaii, or tsunamis, which we get in Hawaii but not where we live, or places where there's tornadoes, or any of that stuff. It's just being prepared to survive on your own if something bad happens. And war is a very, very, very bad thing. And I know it's unpleasant to think about, but you better start thinking about it. Because we could be in a major war very, very quickly. And obviously for Claire and I, we're very nervous because all of the communications for the entire Pacific Fleet go through Pearl Harbor. And yes, if Pearl Harbor were taken out, there's still the TACAMO airplanes and NECAP, but they don't have the capacity that the command centers have here in Hawaii. And if there is an attack on Hawaii, I hope it's by North Korea because their nukes are so weak that we'll just get a fireworks show up where we live. But the nukes currently in use by Russia and China, if they take out Pearl Harbor, Claire and I are not going to be in a position to do this radio show any longer. That's just a reality. But there may not be any place on this island that's even safe. Some of the larger the larger Chinese warhead is basically going to take out this entire island, except possibly Kiana Point out there to the northwest and Makapu'u Point, Hawaii Kai area over to the east. And that's assuming a detonation over Pearl Harbor. So it is time to think about this reality. It's time to think about the reality the draft may be coming back. It's time to think about the reality that this government may steal your children away from you and send them out to be killed and crippled to make already rich people even richer. Because that's exactly what these wars are all about. And you have to be prepared. Now, getting on back to the fake news, CNN is now out there saying that the reason there's no evidence that Assad gassed his own people is because Russia's covering it up. Those evil Russians, they covered it on up. No, the problem is the story made no sense. And by the way, James Corbett of the Corbett Report has come out with another one of his wonderful videos about the Syrian conspiracy theory. It's as good as the one he did about 9/11, and it is on the front page of whatreallyhappened.com, and you should watch it and share it with all your social media because, once again, Corbett nails it. He just nails it. Now, getting on back to fake news and the corporate media, interesting little observation over at The Intercept about Rachel Maddow has just become this foaming at the mouth Russia basher. Anything that's bad in the world, Rachel Maddow is saying somehow it ties to Russia. We're having thunderstorms come through Oahu later this evening. Rachel Maddow would blame that on Russia's storm-making machine. Getting dandruff, Rachel Maddow says it's Russia's fault here. Okay, moving on to some other stories. You've probably noticed recently that Claire has been very upset over the stories of female genital mutilation in other countries. And I'm rather sorry to report it's actually happened here in the United States of America. There's a doctor, Yumana Nagarwala, an emergency room physician in a Detroit hospital, who did this to two 7-year-old Minnesota girls. Now, for those who don't understand what I'm talking about, female genital mutilation is the removal of the clitoris, which means the girls cannot enjoy sex for the rest of their lives. And this guy just took it upon himself to do this to these two 7-year-old girls. And they've arrested him. Good. But, you know, it's one of those things. Once it's done, it can't be undone. There's no going back. It's not like if he'd broken their arm and you can set the arm and it'll heal. It's sick. It is really, really sick. Now, speaking of sick, you're going to love this one. As you know, our corporate food industry is very alarmed about the public pushback against GMO, chemicals, additives, fillers, and so forth. Psychiatrists have now invented a mental disorder for healthy eating. If you are insisting on eating healthy, natural, safe, organic food, you suffer from orthorexia nervosa. And we're going to prescribe you Big Macs every day for lunch for the next month to cure you of this. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. Profits before people, because these additives are harmful. A big part of America's so-called obesity crisis comes directly from food additives that cause you to want to eat more. Monosodium glutamate, which is claimed to be a flavor enhancer. What it does is it messes up the signal in the brain that says you've eaten enough. And you eat more. And that means you buy more. And food manufacturers love this. And they have 30 different euphemisms for monosodium glutamate because they know actually putting MSG or monosodium glutamate in the ingredient list means products will not be bought. So they call it other things like autolyzed yeast extract and various other names. And legally they're allowed to do it. And it builds their profits, and people are gaining weight eating this food with MSG in it. I have to avoid it because it's also a migraine trigger. Then you have aspartame, which is sold as a diet aid, a zero-calorie sugar replacement. The problem is it makes your body crave real carbohydrates, So yes, you start eating more. Then there are all the growth hormones pumped into beef and poultry, which if they're not fully metabolized at the time these animals are harvested, you will eat it, and that hormone affects you the way it affects the animals, and you gain weight. Now, a lot of people are rather amazed by the fact that I have managed to lose 80 pounds since I began my diet a year ago. And a big part of it was simply avoiding these chemicals. And the weight just started coming right off. And I'm about to cross below 200 for the first time in I forget how many years. My ultimate target is 180. And that was it. So now we have a dairy industry front group that is running an ad campaign declaring that people who want to eat clean food are a cult. They're weird. These people who don't want to eat processed food, they're weird. And wanting to eat natural, unprocessed food, it promotes disease. And there's more of that fascist attitude toward the American public. They don't want to change their product to sell what we want to buy. They want us to buy what they want to sell us. And talk about a whopper. It makes me glad I'm no longer connected with the advertising industry because I just couldn't get involved in an ad campaign like this. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people where it's perfectly okay. Yeah, give me enough money. I'll tell people that smoking doesn't cause cancer and that GMOs are good for them and vaccines are perfectly safe. There are way too many such people in positions of power in advertising, media, and public relations. And it is a problem. But just think about that. An ad campaign to tell you that people who want to eat natural organic food are a cult. Ooh, they're a cult. Stay away from them. They're cultists. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the last segment of our program on this Pauhana Friday. Now, yesterday we were telling you about this rather underhanded little stunt that Burger King did on a commercial. It's a very short commercial, and a 15-second ad, so they're not having to spend as much money for the ad, and it features an actor who says, "Okay, Google, what is the Whopper Burger?" And what that means is that if you have a Google Home device, it will then take you to the Wikipedia page for the Whopper, because that's what Google Home does. When you say, "What is," it takes you to Wikipedia. And people have gotten onto that Wikipedia page and edited it to make it say, like, the burger is made with 100% rat and toenail clippings, various other things like that. Now, I worked in advertising for a lot of years. I won some industry awards here. And one of the things that was a principle of advertising back then, you do not annoy your potential customers. Because, first of all, they have to come back from the Wikipedia page to watch the TV show they were watching before they were so rudely interrupted. And I'm not surprised people are responding this way. But unfortunately, advertisers, and we're even seeing that online, their attitude is getting to be, you will watch our ads. Forget about the TV show. This all exists for us to put commercials in front of you, and you will sit there and watch them. There's even talk about a new system where to watch movies on cable, you will have to watch a certain number of commercials and actually respond on your remote to prove that you're really watching them before the movie is unlocked. I mean, that's how abusive it's becoming. And I'll tell you this right now. I don't respond well to any aggressive advertising like that. I just turn off completely. And so do most people. Advertising's been around for a very, very long time. And the rules that we have in advertising, or at least used to have when I was involved in advertising, they weren't just arbitrary and made up. They were acquired through trial and error, things that worked and things that didn't. So it was a very dumb thing for Burger King to do. And I'm absolutely delighted that people were able to fight back by editing the Wikipedia page. Now, I'm sure that Wikipedia has probably put it on back to glorify Burger King's cholesterol bomb, and they've locked it against future edits. But whoever thought this idea up, they didn't think it all the way through. They were just sitting in a room and say, I know, we'll have our commercial say, okay, Google, what is the Whopper? And everybody's TV set will go on over to the Wikipedia page, which is just wonderful puff piece for our burger, and they'll just get so hungry they'll order a burger right then and there, or they'll go down to the burger. Didn't work out that way. You never irritate and annoy your viewers in a commercial. It's never going to work out for you. And, you know, this aggressive, intrusive, grab them by the throat style of advertising, it's not really going to work. It's never worked. It won't work, period, end of discussion. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. So far, no signs of a bang from North Korea, but we're going to be keeping an eye open for that one. We'll be back Monday here on RBN, and until then, please think about the realities of possibly being in a war zone. Share what you know with everyone that you know all over social media, and otherwise, try and relax. Have a happy Easter. And we'll be back Monday. Aloha, America.